continuing its airstrikes in Gaza. Health authorities in Gaza say more than 400 Palestinians have been killed. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf reports the airstrike started overnight.
Frega says he was asleep with his wife in their home outside of Gaza City when they awoke to the sound of the house next door being hit by a strike. He says he thought it was a bad dream at first. He told NPR's Anas Baba that he was buried under the rubble but was pulled out. They spoke at the Al Ahli hospital. I was expecting the ceasefire to continue and for things to get better, he says. We need the world to intervene. Israel says it launched the surprise attacks to pressure Hamas to release more Israeli hostages. Hamas has said it would release more hostages, but not under a new ceasefire agreement that Israel, along with the U.S., has been pushing. Kat Lonsdorf, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
In the U.S., a federal judge has set a deadline for 1 hour from now for the Justice Department. By then, agency officials are supposed to provide U.S. District Judge James Boasberg with a sworn written statement. This is supposed to offer details about U.S. flights over the weekend that deported hundreds of Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador. The judge had initially given a verbal order for the planes to be turned around, but NPR's Franco Ordonez reports that didn't happen.
The controversy is whether the U.S. government defied a legal court order, which would be a potential breakdown between the executive branch and the judicial branch. And many legal experts say this would create a major constitutional crisis. Now, the White House says they did not ignore the court, and they're painting this as a counterterrorism operation.
NPR's Franco Ordonez reporting. Meanwhile, President Trump has excoriated a federal judge this morning. Writing online, Trump blasted an unnamed judge, saying the judge should be impeached. The post appears to be directed at Judge Boasberg. The U.S. Surgeon General's office has taken down a Biden-era advisory. They called gun violence a public health crisis. NPR's Martin Costi reports gun rights groups are welcoming the move.
Last year, President Biden's Surgeon General declared gun violence a public health crisis, angering gun rights groups who saw this as an attempt to pathologize gun ownership. Now the government has taken down the advisory and related websites in response to a February executive order by President Trump. Alan Gottlieb, founder of the Second Amendment Foundation, welcomes the change.
Gun ownership is not a communicable disease. It's not a health issue. That's what bothers us, intellectual dishonesty.
But gun control groups such as Gifford say guns do pose a risk to public health, given that shootings have become the leading cause of death for American kids ages 1 through 17. Martin Costi, NPR News.
On Wall Street, the Dow is now down more than 300 points. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations.
Other contributors include CFP, Certified Financial Planner Professionals, committed to acting in their clients' best interests. Learn more at letsmakeaplan.org. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Support for WAMU comes from our members and from the Kennedy Center, presenting the New York City Ballet performing Coppelia, a comedic story ballet full of mischief and romance. March 25th through 30th. More at kennedy-center.org.
It is 11:04. Good morning. I'm Jerry Mitchell. You're listening to WAMU 88.5. Across from me is Jill Errol Bailey. She's the producer of the big broadcast. So if you're just joining us, I'm going to give a big shout out, good morning, and a hello to Jill.
Good morning, Jerry.
And you know, we are here asking for your support. This is our spring membership campaign. The weather's getting beautiful. Today we're looking for a high of 64 degrees. It is lovely in Lanham right now, clear skies, and 52. But you know, the brightest part of every day is turning on the radio here at WAMU and listening maybe to Morning Edition. Maybe that's how you start your day. Maybe you're a midday person. Maybe you get up at somewhere around 9 or 10 and you're turning on 1A and you're listening to Jen White. Or maybe you have a job where you work overnights and your time to get up and maybe in the afternoon. Well, that's the time that we are bringing you the daily and all things considered programs that you trust. We're asking that you become a member today at 800-248-8850 or WAMU.org.
One of the things that's unique about our funding here is that the listener chooses the level. We're not going to tell you, there's a paywall unless you pay this amount. No, this is up to you. If that's $10 a month, $30 a month, those are the most popular levels. Maybe it's $50 a month. Maybe it's $100 a month. We don't know unless you go to WAMU.org and click your level that works for you. Work it into your day. It takes 2 minutes. We've streamlined the way that you can do that with our digital wallet. It's super easy. WAMU.org.
support. We invite everybody in. We don't, say this group of people is welcome and that group of people. Everyone is welcome here at WAMU. Every dollar amount, every listener, every age level, maybe you're a college student. WAMU.org or 800-248-8815.
This is 1A. I'm Jen White. Over the weekend, the Trump administration deported approximately 260 people to El Salvador. That's despite a judge's order to turn the planes around. The administration says those deported were members of two gangs, including one with origins in Venezuela. This follows a proclamation from the president late last week that targeted gang members, invoking the rarely used Alien Enemies Act, a law from the 1700s. And this move is setting up the administration for a clash with the federal courts and what say the courts have in our immigration system. Who is the administration targeting with these latest deportations? And what do these flights tell us about the administration's compliance with orders by federal courts? Joining us now from Arlington, Virginia is Maya Ward. She's a White House reporter for Politico. Maya, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
And to note that this story is moving very quickly. You can find the latest at npr.org or through your local station. So, Maya, President Trump issued a proclamation this past weekend related to deporting immigrants from Venezuela. What did that proclamation say?
Yeah, so the president's proclamation was focused in on Tren de Aragua, a transnational criminal organization from Venezuela. The U.S. last month designated it as a foreign terrorist organization, really in preparation for this moment. This is something that, Trump talked about on the campaign trail. He even mentioned in his Inauguration Day speech, saying that this was something that he was going to be making a decision on soon. And so the Alien Enemies Act, it's this archaic law from 1798 and basically gives the government the authority to deport non-citizens without the opportunity to go before an immigration judge or federal court judge. And so Trump essentially said in this proclamation that Tren de Aragua gang is an invading force that must be stopped, and he essentially labeled it as the equivalent of a foreign government.
Is it clear what power this proclamation has through a legal lens?
Yeah, this is something, there is some historical precedent here. The Alien Enemies Act has been invoked 3 times, but the key difference is that each time it has been during a major conflict, the War of 1812, World War I, World War II. In the First World Wars, the law was this key authority that led to detentions, expulsions, and restrictions, specifically targeting German, Austro-Hungarian, Japanese, and also Italian immigrants. It's really known best for its role specifically in Japanese internment, which we all know from U.S. history.
Yeah. A lawsuit in a D.C. district court and an emergency hearing followed that proclamation. Walk us through what happened at each step this weekend, because the timing here is really important.
Yeah, Saturday was indeed a whirlwind. That morning, there was this lawsuit that came out on behalf of 5 Venezuelan nationals, basically saying that Trump is soon going to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport them. And so we have this judge, he blocks the deportation of these 5 people and calls for a hearing in the evening. It was scheduled for 5 p.m. And I'll just note, from a reporter's perspective, as of Saturday morning, we did not know for sure if Trump had officially invoked the Alien Enemies Act. We knew it was coming from reporting. I had talked to a DHS official as well as someone close to the administration Friday afternoon who basically told me, look, this is on a very accessible shelf, ready to go, it just needs final clearance, final decision hasn't been made about when it's going to be deployed. Turns out Trump then had quietly signed it Friday night. We learned this on Saturday afternoon around 4 p.m., right before the hearing is set to take place. The White House published a link to the presidential proclamation on the website. While all of this is happening, my colleagues and I are discussing some flights we are tracking, and we're hearing on the ground in Texas that migrants are being loaded onto buses and headed for the airport. The hearing then begins at 5 p.m., and the judge is weighing, whether or not to make this a more sweeping block on Trump's effort, to not only apply the deportation ban on those 5 people, but also on all Venezuelans who could be targeted under this specific order. At this point, there is a break called in the hearing, basically for the government to go and gather information and get answers about whether or not planes have actually taken off. Because you had the plaintiffs discussing in the hearing saying that they're concerned that people are actively being removed from the country. So during that break, we saw the 2 aircraft believed to be carrying Venezuelan deportees took off from an airport in Texas. The hearing resumes around 6 p.m. The judge ended up expanding his block to anyone who would be affected by this order and said any plane containing these people, whether it is about to take off or is in the air, needs to be returned to the United States immediately. That oral...
They don't seem to have.
Recording started.
Molasses tomorrow will bring forth cognac. I say again, molasses tomorrow will bring forth cognac. All right. Fort Hunt Park, Federal Park, 100 meters behind the grid you see on the dash cam. 100 meters behind the grid you see on the dash cam. Good news, due to Trump's cuts, Fort Hunt Park is not closely monitored by the park police or rangers. Park rangers, is that what you call them? So you're good here. Moving on.
Thanks for having me, Jen.
And joining us from Austin, Texas is Dr. Pooja Lakshman. She's a psychiatrist and clinical assistant professor of psychiatry at the George Washington University School of Medicine. She's also author of Real Self-Care, Crystals, Cleanses, and Bubble Baths Not Included. Pooja, welcome back to the program.
It's great to be back. Thanks, Jen.
And you can share your tips for how to create a sense of agency in this moment. How do you find balance in your life? Email us at 1a@wamu.org. Pooja, psychologically speaking, what is this feeling of needing to develop a sense of agency or control in our lives?
Yeah, I think that when we think about the word agency, it probably links the most closely to the concept of self-efficacy in terms of psychological terms. Self-efficacy is this concept that means your actions, your behaviors matter. That even in a very difficult situation, even in a chaos.
The lane I'm in is actually a pedestrian bike lane, but it's a one-way road around the loop. They've closed part of it. I don't know why, but I got funny looks from the pedestrians because I'm driving in their lane. You pretty much have to. If you drove up here, you need to get back up.
Agency or self-efficacy, thinking about, okay, what are the ways that I can problem solve? What are the ways that I can take back some meaning, some energy, some of my attention, and put it back into ways that are filling me up? That's what we're talking about here with self-efficacy or agency.
Margaret, in your life, what has that process looked like for you, that claiming of agency in your daily life?
Oh gosh, there's so many ways that this is almost a spiritual practice for me these days. What can I do to stop panicking? One of the things that has always, it has always been a cure for me is the natural world. The way that you move through the natural world is the pace of our bodies. The pace of a stride, of a stretch, of a breath, of a heartbeat. These are the kinds of motions that we aren't aware of when we're living at the speed of 21st century life. Even aside from the question of the news, just the way the speed at which the world works and the noises that come to us through that world are overwhelming. And so stepping outside to me has always been the surest cure for being for basically hyperventilating. But I also think that these days, here lately, the trick for me is to put guardrails around when I consume news. I write every week for a newspaper. I don't tune out the news, but I think a lot about how my parents consumed news. Back in the 70s, they got a daily morning newspaper, they got a daily evening newspaper, they got a news show in the evenings, and they got little breaks on the radio station, just little updates. They didn't have these alerts going off, the latest thing that's horrific. And I think that was, even though they didn't have any choice about it in those days, that was a good model. Like, what can we do to stay tuned in, but not be overwhelmed by it? And for me, that just means, honestly, it means I don't take in news when it's dark. I make sure, there's something about that sundowning thing. I don't know if it's my age or if it's just a little bit of an atavistic return to the sense of vulnerability in the darkness. But I make sure that I don't immediately open the news. I don't immediately check the headlines when I wake up. And it is absolutely not the last thing I do before I go to sleep. So if I'm keeping those guardrails religiously, it's possible to do both, to stay aware as a citizen and to protect my vulnerability.
That echoes this email we got from Linda in Charlotte, who says, what is going on is not only destroying our country, but trying to destroy me. I can't sleep, very anxious. I've never been filled with hate as I am for this administration. I'm listening to more music, going to more theater, trying to listen to only 2 NPR newscasts per day. I read only the headlines in New York Times just to be in the know. I am worried about our country. Pooja, what are you hearing from your patients? What are they doing to develop this sense of self-efficacy in their lives?
Yeah, first I want to say that I love that piece of advice that Margaret gave about I don't read the news in the dark. I think that's a great boundary to have. So I'm in Austin, Texas, but my patients actually are in Washington, D.C. I practice virtually in my practice. And so my patients are in it. A lot of them work in the government or, for different government agencies. And what we've been talking a lot about is now is the time to ground in your relationships, to develop really strong community bonds, to stay connected to the people in your life that matter. So small things. I have a patient who started going to her neighborhood. Some of the moms and women in her neighborhood get together once a week and they go for a walk. And it's the same scheduled time every week. And these are not like her best friends, but they're these loose social ties that are local. And she mentioned, surprisingly, just how helpful it's been for her mood to have that. I know folks that are, kind of trying to get monthly get-togethers on the books with friends. I think one of the ways to make this happen, because I know it can, especially in our day and age with technology, we're also prone to isolating and sitting in our own houses or our own apartments and scrolling, and that is not the answer. Instead, I think that we need to get closer to the relationships that matter to us. So having a standing once a month, every third Wednesday, we all meet up at this restaurant, or we all get together at someone's house for a potluck. One of the keys there is that it's standing so that you're not constantly relitigating the decision each time. And also similarly to what some of the callers have said or the listeners have said, instead of listening to the news in the morning, I have a patient that's listening to jazz in the car. People really coming back to just small little moments of creativity, like a lot of knitting, puzzles, feel-good TV. And I think that, like what Margaret said, I think especially for some of us, there can be this tendency to feel guilty, like, oh no, am I tuning out, or is it bad that I need these escapes? And in fact, I always say, no, we need this because this is the way that we protect our humanity. And actually the way to consume news right now and stay engaged is to have boundaries around it. So that when you are sitting down to listen to a show or when you are sitting down to read something, you're actually present and you're taking it in and you're saying, okay, what can I do based on reading this?
We're speaking to Dr. Pooja Lakshman, a psychiatrist and clinical assistant professor of psychiatry. Also with us, Margaret Wrinkle, author of The Comfort of Crows, A Backyard Year. And let's go back to our voicemail box. Here's a message we got from Nicole in Michigan.
I get a lot of peace of mind and comfort from the native pollinator habitat, the garden we keep at our home.
All right. Mount Vernon Plantation parking lot, north end, notes the trailhead.
Habitat and having those visitors come to you, birds, butterflies, frogs, toads, that brings a lot of comfort, a lot of joy and affection. And
Light is on. Recording started.
Oh, recording started. Okay. The chair is against the wall. I say again, the chair is against the wall. All right. A little ways into that trailhead, you'll see a mile marker 0. A little brown sign, mile marker 0. 100 meters down the trail, stop, azimuth 90 degrees, due west, azimuth 90 degrees, magnetic, 30 meters. Again, the chair is against the wall. Now, I have to go north of Alexandria for the next stop. Enjoy the ride.
He puts that on every summer, and it's for kids ages 15 to 19. And they get 5 days where they can just be with other LGBTQ plus youth in Appalachia who understand what it's like to live in a state that is constantly trying to attack them and suppress their voices. And they get those 5 days to feel empowered with one another and to feel safe. And we also teach them advocacy and organizing skills that they're able to take back into their communities. And I really can't drive home that safety aspect enough and that joy. Part of the attacks that are happening on the community are so grounded in trying to erase us. So another part of my job has been events that really showcase just how beautiful our community can be. In August, the West Virginia Trans Coalition put on the first ever Appalachian Trans Music and Arts Festival, and we had all kinds of different bands and drag performances and artists showcasing their work. And we let it just be a celebration where we sat aside any attack happening on our community, and we just felt love with one another, and we felt seen. This weekend, we did a Trans Day visibility show where we worked on making sure the exact same thing could happen. We had about 100 people there in Morgantown listening to music by trans artists in the state, watching drag performances, so many different things. And I think that level of centering joy and community and care is the most important thing we can do right now in amplifying the voices of people that are trying to be erased in ways that aren't just centering stories of turmoil and strife that happen for us, but also just how beautiful it can be to be queer, because it is beautiful.
That's Sam Green, their trans justice organizer for the ACLU of West Virginia. Sam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We're also hearing from lots of you. Beth says, I have been repairing and refurbishing bikes for kids in my community, both for friends and by volunteering for my local elementary school, which has a fleet of bikes for their pedal power program that needs some work after the fall rising season, now that we are riding again into the spring. Using one of my hobby skills
has been a good way to carve out time for myself to recharge. The feeling of being helpful, making a difference in kids' lives by getting them a working bike in time for the good weather feels great. And we also got this message from one of you. In these troubling times, a daily random act of kindness is helping. I recently bought a man a cookie he was admiring. I let someone go in front of me in a long line, was super nice to a service person who looked stressed, and gave a generous tip to the nice Uber driver. The genuine smiles lifted my hopes. You can add your voice to the conversation. Email us at 1a@wamu.org. We're here with Dr. Pooja Lakshman. She's a psychiatrist and author of Real Self-Care, Crystals, Cleanses, and Bubble Baths Not Included, and Margaret Wrinkle, author of The Comfort of Crows, A Backyard Year. She's also a columnist for the New York Times. I'm Jen Blank. You're listening to 1A. And you're listening to WAMU 88.5. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday. It is now 11:52. We're coming up on the 12 o'clock hour. We've got just a little more conversation coming your way. But On Point will be coming your way at 12 o'clock. But don't fret. We have great programming coming all throughout the day. But right now we want you to take just a moment to become a member to support the conversation that you're listening to on 1A. What's coming up with Meghna Chakrabarty at 12 o'clock on Point and all throughout the afternoon hours. Our website is WAMU.org and our phone number is 800-248-8850.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from USPS. USPS Ground Advantage Service keeps customers in the know when their shipment leaves the dock, when it's on the move, and when it's delivered. Learn more at USPS.com/in-the-know. From Indeed, committed to giving job listings increased visibility with relevant candidates through its sponsored jobs feature. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And from ECMC Foundation at ECMCfoundation.org.
Support for WAMU comes from our members and from Strathmore, presenting Leela Downs on March 27th, blending folk.
Nothing dropped here. Point of orientation. To my right is the Potomac River. Directly across Potomac River from Fort Hunt, the first drop, is Fort Washington. Fort Washington is it's not active, but it is a national park, and that helps you navigate the area. Fort Washington's technically in Maryland, on the other side of the Potomac River.
On how Sly Stone paved the way. Dance to the Music is one of those accidental #1 songs that he did.
Depth conversations. That's what you enjoy. It pulls you in to the conversation. If you miss that conversation with Terry Gross and Questlove, check it out. You know that you can find it here at WAMU. We're asking
another point of orientation and geographical awareness. This is the Mount Vernon. I'm sorry. Correct. This is the George Washington Memorial Parkway. It goes from Mount Vernon through Old Town Alexandria and continues north up until around the Memorial Bridge area. So far, this entire strip is federal road. Because it's federal road, the local police don't patrol it. And because of all the Doge cuts, the federal law enforcement doesn't patrol it. Once in a while, if you're breaking the speed limit like I am now by 5 miles an hour, either could probably catch you off of one of the side streets and chase you down and get you a ticket. But it's very poorly enforced. I'll mention it when we get there. As we enter Old Town Alexandria, it becomes City Street. That's when it drops down to 25. And when we get out of Alexandria, it becomes Federal Road again. I'll mark those two points as we cross them.
To make sure that the news that is published, that it is correct, that it is factual, and that you don't have to guess. And we take the guesswork out of fact and fiction around here. So we're asking that you support this station, and we're asking, because it's a spring membership campaign, it is a great time. Everything that happens in the spring is newness and is growth. So if you are just coming to the region, or you're listening for the first time, or you've been listening forever and haven't done it, call us now, 800-248-8850 or WAMU.org.
Your gift allows us to give you that fact-based news so you aren't stuck with what's available through social media and influencers who, dare I say, might be pretending to be journalists. They might have a confident voice and a great presence, and what they're actually reading is the back of a soup can. So they're not giving you that triple-checked, fact-based news. You have high standards. That's why you're listening right now, and we want to deliver to those high standards. But that's why we need your help, right? Your financial support. We're singling you out if you're listening. We are. It's as simple to give. We are singling you out because you have high standards. We want to meet those standards. So we want to thank you. New donors, Maggie from Winchester, Peter from Colonial Beach, Jeffrey from DC. These are friends who have stepped up and said, yes, I want to continue this great work in the DC region, and to be available on our website, WMU.org, for everyone across the country. So go to WMU.org, pick a level of giving that works for you. Just do it now. Join the crew.
And Jessica said, listen, you're not going to call me out. She says, she got ahead of you, Jill. Jessica from Fairfax, Virginia gave and said there's no better time than today to give money to this independent radio station.
All right. We're nearing the end of the federal part of the road, where speed limit becomes 25. That's city. Once it becomes 25, it is enforced by the city of Alexandria. So if you come this way and you're ignoring speed limits, make sure you pay attention to them now. Now we're in Alexandria. Now speed limits are enforceable by the Alexandria City Police. So slow it down, Finkel. You're over the speed limit. 25. There we go. Well, close enough.
Your smart speaker and at WAMU.org. It's 12 o'clock. Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Gaza's health ministry is reporting more than 400 deaths and hundreds more people injured since Israel launched aerial attacks overnight and shattered a 2-month-old ceasefire with Hamas. The Associated Press capturing images of people of all ages being rushed into a medical facility in Khan Yunis. Israel says it's still striking terrorist targets belonging to Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist organizations across the Gaza Strip. NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi reports on whether the latest assault means the ceasefire is over.
It might be a little too early to tell if the war is fully back on or what these strikes mean exactly for the ceasefire. You know, in recent weeks, Israel has been steadily increasing strikes in Gaza. Hamas hasn't yet responded with its own strikes. But today's assault is, of course...
Now, you all saw what happened to the U.S. peace, whatever it was. Doge came in. It's non-federal property. The organization is financed by the federal government, but it's not executive branch. It is independent. Yet Doge came in over the weekend. They were sent away. They came back Monday with fake FBI agents. The fake FBI agents were armed. The agency called the police, and the police wouldn't do anything about it. And that's where we are with Doge now. As we drive through Old Town Alexandria, you will see a lot of entities that are not federal government, but do receive money from the federal government. In fact, some of them even have board members who are from the federal government. I know one has the guy in charge of the Department of Interior. None of them are federal government. We're getting the word out for these people. Wear body cams. Wear 10-hour body cams for your 8 or 9 hour workday. And if Doge comes and pulls that shit, one, Alexandria City Police will defend things that are not DHS protectees. If they come for you without a warrant, get it on body cam, call the Alexandria Police, and they'll take care of you. And if they don't, at least get out. I mean, don't fight them. They're going to come armed. If you're in Alexandria, you're probably not armed. Don't fight them, but go ahead and comply, leave, and turn in that body cam footage to whoever on social media you like, or the news agencies. MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News are not doing enough. What we consider liberal, CNN and MSNBC, they're doing a little bit more. But if they come, and I'll try to point some of them out. as we pass them. Actually, they're probably not on this main strip. Okay, too soon. Well, you can look them up. Federal government not endorsed, financed or partially financed entities in Alexandria. Lobbyist firms. Well, the one on my mind I can't name because my sweetie works there. We're not going to point that one out. The Officers Associations, that's what they call them. Associations. I think the Military Officers Association is coming up here on the right somewhere. Yeah, right there. Military Officers Association of America, right there on the right of Cameron and Washington. It is partially financed by the federal government. They are not federal government. However, if Doge can do what they did Monday, if you work in that building, wear a body cam every day to work. And if nothing happens, erase the footage and wear a body cam the next day. And keep in mind, you are in Alexandria, you're not on federal property. The Alexandria police are much better police force than the Washington Metropolitan Police. There's a few other agencies, not agencies, associations. That's what they call them, associations around here. They probably won't fuck with the daughters of the Confederate daughters, whatever they call them bitches. The people who try to relive the Confederacy. They're up here on the right at near the birthplace of Robert E. Lee. Yeah, I forgot to point out the statue that they took down of the Confederate soldier because they were afraid it would get vandalized. I think they're safe. The racist fascists aren't coming after them. Yeah, that's the birthplace of Robert E. Lee. What else have we got? Oh, NARF. Federal benefits. NARF. That's another one. There's a bunch of them. And they're not all on the main strip here. They're off to the left and right, east and west. Alright, I'm going to shut up now and get back to my drops.
That draws us to the all-you-can-eat, the buy-one-get-one, the unlimited refill, the endless, the bottomless, the lifetime guarantee. These promises are not to be underestimated because their flip side is terrifying. To want a boundless supply means also to acknowledge a boundless need. We are inclined to hunger, end quote. Well, that is from Mester's new book, American Bulk, Essays on Excess. And let me stop you before you presume this is just another snobby, chiding cultural critique tisk-tisking the behavior of the mythical average American. It's quite the opposite, in fact. Mester's book is more a memoir, and she writes lovingly, delicately, and often humorously about her own family's relationship with stuff and how that consumerism shaped their relationships with each other. And she joins us now. Emily Mester, welcome to On Point.
Hi.
I was wondering if you could actually start us off by reading directly from the book, and it's about a place that was very, very important to you and your family when you were growing up as a young girl. Can you read us that section there?
Sure. I have known Costco longer than I have known most of my friends. I have spent more hours roaming its aisles than I have spent with several of my first cousins. My family took our first Costco trip in November 1998. The company had brought a store to the suburbs of Chicago, and we went on the very first Sunday of its opening. I was 8, and every single week for the next 6 years, my mother, my father, my grandma, my 3 brothers, and later, when she was born, my sister, would pile into our red minivan, and later, a brown SUV, and we would return to that Costco, Always that Costco, always together, and always on Sunday. We were nominally Catholic, but nobody ever went to church. Costco was our mass.
Costco was our mass. So that's Emily Mester reading from American Bulk. I can't think of another place other than religious houses that people go to regularly every week. The only other place is like folks' favorite stores. Why was Costco such a place of pilgrimage for your family?
For us, stores were kind of one of the few places we could be together without pretense. You know, we didn't really do family game nights. We wouldn't all go to the park or the movies together.
Salvation Army National Headquarters, to my right, they're one of them. They get money from the feds. Are they safe? I don't know. Probably because they're anti-LGBTQ.
Visiting a place, it's just kind of a place to return to and be together, but you have a reason to be there.
You know, when you said the word.
All right, we are now back on Federal Road. So Alexandria PD won't enforce here speed limits. And it's very poorly, weakly enforced by the feds. Well, it's 40 here. Oddly, the traffic is complying, close to it anyway. Usually people are zooming through here at 60 miles an hour.
Labyrinthine, you know, castle-like place. It's got these giant shelves filled with items. The birds are perched in the ceiling. It's got food. It's got pillows. It's got drinks. It's got snacks. It's got kind of everything you would need. It's like its own little city. And yeah, there was just a real sense of possibility when we walked around there. I mean, what could they could have anything. They could have a giant stuffed bear, which they did, and for some reason that was like the one thing that they would never get us at Costco. But there's so much to do there, and I think my dad felt that same sense of childlike reverie. It sort of brought him back to being a kid. And
I say again, not a drop. This is Gravely Point. This is a point of interest. Code ... dash. I say again, code ... dash. Gravely Point is patrolled by the United States Park Police. I see a park police officer to my right now. This point of interest, this is one of the many marshalling points on January 6th. The area I'm driving around now was filled with January 6th supporting vehicles that had flags and banners, stop the steal, Trump this, Trump that. On January 6, 2021, when we were on our way into D.C. to photograph and film what we needed to photograph and film, there were several cars, buses, vans, pickup trucks parked in this area. I missed the point where they parked, but they left armed guards. This is a federal park. As you see, it's patrolled by park police. There's a guy over there. I don't know. Is he looking for me? Is he one of Trump's people, or is he one of America's people? I don't know. But thanks or no thanks to one of Biden's mistakes, Biden signed into law that it's okay. It is okay to have firearms in national parks. And they used that on January 6th. They claimed there were no firearms involved. Well, they had armed guards guarding. There's a fucking swastika. They claimed they had armed guards. I mean, They claim they had no weapons at January 6th. We found out later they did. And in fact, they had several caches. And the people guarding their vehicles, their privately owned vehicles, they were armed. And no one could do anything about them carrying guns in this federal park. There's another swastika car. Sell that piece of shit. All right. The reason I give this a ... dash is, well, if it's okay for them, it's okay. It's now established. You can do that. You can't do that in Alexandria. You can't do that in Arlington. But these marshalling areas like this and others around the outskirts of D.C., they did. They did have a cache on the border of D.C. and Maryland on the other side of the Potomac River. They deny that was theirs. It was Stuart Rhodes. Yeah, the guy with the patch. The guy shot his own fucking eye out because he's a fucking idiot. But we're moving on to the next drop. In editing, I caught myself saying cache a couple times. Look, motherfuckers, it's not cache, it's cash. There's no A in it. This is the problem you get when you occasionally watch other YouTube channels and people say and pronounce things wrong. It catches on. Like an operator knows an operator. Or is that guy keeping that as a cache? It's not cache, it's cash. Yeah, I'll edit in the dictionary definition with the pronunciation part. Cash. Finkel, stop saying cache. Retards say that.
Those impulses in myself, but I suppose when you're like 8 and 9, it's not really a common thing for an 8, 9-year-old to think, I don't need this, but I want, like I want it, but the thought of need doesn't cross your mind. But we've got to take a quick break, Emily, so hang on for just a second. When we come back, there's a lot more to discuss about your new book. It's called American Bulk, Essays on Excess. We'll be right back. This is On Point.
Pentagon to my left, Washington Memorial to my right, both off distance. By the way, between me and the Pentagon is the Pentagon Lagoon. One of their original plans for January 6th was to park boats there and march into D.C. across the that bridge you see up there. That's the 14th Street Bridge. No, I'm sorry, not that bridge, the other bridge, the one behind me. They decided they just couldn't get much of their support to do that. Thank God, because we didn't have the support to try and stop it, and the law enforcement was ignoring it. Moving on to the next drop.
Support for WAMU comes from our members and from Pharma, whose members have relied on America's intellectual property system to build a research pipeline that gives Americans more medicine choices than anywhere else in the world. Pharma.org/IP Work Wonders.
Support for On Point comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and Insurify, an online insurance agent that brings car insurance companies to you. You can compare real-time quotes side by side from dozens of companies, large and small, available at Insurify.com. And BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 30,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
You're back with On Point. I'm Meghna Chakrabarty, and today we're talking with Emily Mester. Her new book is called American Bulk, Essays on Excess. And Emily, we started off the conversation with your family's weekly Sunday pilgrimage to Costco. So you don't just write about your family, but you also write about the store itself. And you actually, in that first essay, taught me a lot about Costco that I'll admit I did not know. That you point out that because you can buy things in massive bulk at Costco, in a sense, it's not a place that people who are impoverished can go, because you have to pay for, a lot of stuff. But at the same time, it's not necessarily considered an upscale American store. So I was wondering if you could read from the book that section of the chapter.
But Costco doesn't seem upscale. In the hierarchy of retail aesthetics, Costco sits at the unsexy bottom. It lacks the earthy bourgeois glamour of Whole Foods or Target's warm graphic buoyancy or the hot American urgency of 7-Eleven.
All right, this is a ... point of interest. Theodore Roosevelt Island. Not a trop. Say again, not a trop. ... triple dash. Can't drive to the point I'm referencing, but that island right there, that's Roosevelt Island. You can access it through a footbridge, and it's a relatively narrow cross to the Potomac River to Georgetown. Georgetown is the edge of D.C., just before Maryland. It might be an easy choke point. You know what I'm saying? It's a little bit wider than from here to the island. It is from the island to Georgetown, but it's narrow enough, if you know what I mean. Give it a ... dash for your consideration. Again, this is not a trop. This is not a trop. Moving on to John's Place. We'll be there soon.
By now, you can guess whose bottle features a magnificent glacial landscape dotted by white wings, and whose simply says, in block text, vodka.
So that's Emily Mester reading from American Bulk, Essays on Excess. So Emily, when I got to that section in the chapter, I have to say, my mind was blown. I thought I knew a lot about Costco, but I had no idea that it was the world's largest.
We're passing under the Key Bridge between Arlington and Georgetown.
The scale of Costco, I think I thought of it almost as my family's little store, and in researching, I was like, oh my God, this is truly, I forget what percentage it is of Americans that have a Costco membership, but it was pretty surprising when I saw it. So yeah, Costco has a lot of power. I know that, I think they're, in order to keep the price of their rotisserie chicken consistent, because it's always been like $5, they've opened up their own giant chicken processing facility that is supposed to sort of usher the chicken from birth to packaging in plastic.
All right. Point of interest, to my right, from John's Place to Roosevelt Island, is a foot trail. It's not very highly used. It's not very well known about, but it does have great concealment for travel between John's Place and Roosevelt Island, if you choose to use pedestrian traffic.
Activity for Americans, which is why we buy much more than we need. But because of that, the experience isn't necessarily, I went to this place to buy specifically this rare item or this high quality item, and seeking out that quality was part of the experience. That's not what it's about at all. If we can have Spanish saffron on the same shelf as tube socks, it's about something else entirely. So what? Do you think that's particularly American?
I think people like the idea that there is just a variety of things in this one familiar place. There's a lot of Instagram accounts and YouTube people whose whole brand is basically yep, you can find that at Costco. And there's a joy in being no, we've got that there. It's almost sort of oh yeah, we've got that at home. I feel like Costco is maybe a little bit like your extended pantry. And the idea that all of this is available in this one superstore is well, both convenient and also maybe sort of this physical manifestation of plenitude. You're like, wow, what else are they gonna have? And yeah, the stores have been getting bigger and bigger. I mean, sometimes I'll go into like a Target or a Walmart and they'll have added on like a whole nother wing for some other like function that they've added to their stuff, and eventually they're just gonna become probably their own malls.
I have a Target story if you don't mind me sharing.
Oh, please.
Are you sure? It's okay. I'm actually a fan of Target. I actually like it as a store. The Target closest to me is one of those small urban ones, so it's very, very, it's like a postage stamp size in comparison to a regular Target. But, let's see, this was before Christmas, just like a week or so before Christmas. I went to a regular Target, which I hadn't been in one for a long time. And it was so vast, Emily. I mean, it was enormous. And it was crowded, like people were just trying to buy last minute Christmas gifts. And I actually got a little panicky in the store because I'll be totally transparent. I went there with my son because he wanted one kind of candy that I think only Target sells. So
that's how they get you.
Yeah, well, yes. And I was like, wow, I just drove 3 towns over, spending money on gas, polluting the environment, just so I can get my son one candy that Target sells. Like, this is crazy, but I did it. So I'm just as normie as everybody else. But I was walking through the store, and all I could think of was all of this stuff. This one store with millions of items, it's gonna end up in the landfill. Like, it made me feel nervous and twitchy. And I'd been through stores like that for my whole life, but there was something about it this time that really hit me. I'm wondering if you ever felt that kind of response, maybe as you grew, or do these fond memories of family outings, did that always stay with you?
No, I started feeling that same feeling. I think it was around grad school, and maybe, at this point I had moved enough times in and out of dorms and in and out of apartments that I sort of began to be like, I think I was moving again, and I was like, oh my God, I'm putting a bookshelf on the side of the road. Or that feeling of when, you have a plant that's basically dead and you throw it away and it feels violent. Everything I threw away. Usually I felt like it was truly jettisoned from me if I threw it away or if I recycled it. But it started to feel like it all kind of...
All right, we've arrived at John's place. By the way, that trail I pointed out, it's a nice hike. I don't think you'd want to use it for our purposes. Driving is better. But I hiked it many times between this point and Roosevelt Island. And, all right, something's changed here. All right. We're going to have to make a call and see if there's going to be a change in plans. Oh boy, someone's in that car. All right, I'm going to play tourist.
Wi-Fi is on. Recording started.
Jean has a long mustache. Jean has a long mustache. All right, 100 meters at azimuth 005 degrees from that sign, Potomac Heritage Trail, VA Route 123.7 miles, Turkey Run Park 3.2 miles. We kept this as John has a long mustache. The white pickup trucks, this is the third one since we started the drop. They're just people working on the area, but there's a lot of construction in the area. They're coming up here for little breaks, naps, lunches. They're not paying us any attention. So yes, this is confirmed. Jean has a long mustache. 100 meters, 005 degrees. I'm sorry, 05 degrees from that sign. All right, let's just move on. And they're worried about government employees. All right, get back to work, man. You're cramping my style.
And like, the guy sitting on the couch was thanked by Clint Eastwood as he won Best Picture in real time. And the recognition, he literally jumped 10 feet up in the air. And so I've seen it. And what's funny is, like, I was at the Golden Globes this year, and a lot of people in that episode were there. And people kept coming up to me, being like, it's just like the episode. It's exactly like the episode. It's so weird.
So meta, right? Yeah. Let's take a short break. If you're just joining us, I'm talking with Seth Rogen about his new Apple TV Plus series, The Studio. We'll continue our conversation after a short break. This is Fresh Air.
Warrenton, southbound 29 on the Warrenton bypass after 17. We had all lanes blocked as a result of the crash. Response on scene. Response just left. Now travel lanes have...
By the way, at Fort Marcy, I did confirm that the trail to Roosevelt Island is still there. It's all good. It's better for hiking. I wouldn't use it for our purposes. Not very stable ground. Now we're going to recon a turnaround point, since the only way you can come out of Fort Marcy is north. So we're going to find a good place to turn around and get back to the bridges into DC. Oh, wait a minute. All right. Chain Bridge. Okay, Chain Bridge does go into DC. Good. Good. You can either turn around on Chain Bridge, or you can use Chain Bridge to go into DC. If you wanted to go back towards Alexandria, you would have made a right here. We're going to turn left. Yeah, all right, we're going to turn left. That was the last drop for today. John has a long mustache. Fort Marcy, swastika. Now I'm going to point out potential future drops. If I remember my geography here. This is for consideration only.
Consultation. Call 800-893-4133. That's 800-893-4133. 800-893-4133. Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
I'm Eric Forsetter, Vice President of Public Sector at PagerDuty. In a world where uncertainty persists, one thing remains clear. IT operational resilience is essential for business success. What if you could anticipate, respond to, and resolve IT operational and security disruptions before they impact your mission-critical services? PagerDuty is the leading digital operations platform designed to help you do that. With automated incident response, AI-powered workflows, real-time insights to minimize disruptions, and strengthen security, we help agencies safeguard public trust in critical IT services. Visit us at PagerDuty.com.
CBS News special report. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have wrapped up a phone call that lasted about an hour and a half. Neither the White House nor the Kremlin has released details.
That's what they call phone sex.
The U.S. has been pushing the proposed 30-day ceasefire it drafted with Ukraine earlier this month. More from the BBC's Sarah Rainsford.
They clearly had a huge amount to discuss. I think it's interesting going in.
Alice WTLB Sports. All right, George, advance the film strip at the tone.
All right, I'm not sure if we're in DC or in Maryland, but the direction we're going will eventually become DC if we're not there yet. Not really sure where the borders are. We'll have to check that on the Google Maps.
That's why I turned to Good Feet Arch Supports. They've given me the stability I need. Good Feet Arch Supports are designed to support all 4 arches in each foot, evenly distribute your body weight, and support your kinetic change. Now, over a decade into retirement, I'm still staying active thanks to my Good Feet Arch Supports. If you want to keep moving comfortably, no matter what you're doing, check out the Good Feet store. It's all about staying in the game, however you define it. Live the life you love. Don't let your feet get in the way. Try them for yourself with a free fitting and test walk.
The Good Feet store has locations across Greater DC and Baltimore, and now open in Fredericksburg. Visit goodfeet.com to book your appointment today.
America's energy future begins now. We have the opportunity to strengthen our economy and reduce...
By the way, there are foot trails along the canal and the river to my right. The chain bridge had a ramp way down to it. I don't know if you can see them on the dash cam or not.
Natural gas. America's moment is now. Learn more at Lights on Energy.
Okay. To my right is a former boathouse. The area around it might be a good place. Still don't know if I'm in DC or in Maryland right now. We'll check Google Maps later. Keep in mind, this is time zoned as to whether these lanes are two-way or one-way.
Southbound BW Parkway is starting to slow as you approach 32, headed down south toward 197. Your travel lanes are open and available. If you're traveling on the Beltway in Montgomery County, Inner Loop has some brief slowdowns passing 355, headed up the hill toward Georgia Avenue. Outer Loop slows past River Road toward the Claire Barton Parkway and the American Legion Bridge. In Virginia, on the Inner Loop and Outer Loop between the Dulles Toll Road and the Georgetown Pike, that work continues to take up the right lane. Westbound I-66 after the Fairfax County Parkway had the work taken up the left lane. If you're traveling southbound on the Fairfax County Parkway after Braddock Road, a single lane gets you by the work toward Pope's Head Road. I-95 northbound on the brakes approaching Dale City headed toward 123. Southbound cool as you leave the Springfield interchange headed south toward Quantico. If you're traveling on 395 in pretty good shape going up to and across the 14th Street Bridge. Problem in the district remains northbound DC 295 after Benning Road headed toward Eastern Avenue. The right side still blocked as a result of the work.
The tall building seen up ahead, that's in Arlington, Arlington, Roslyn.
This traffic report is sponsored by YRefi.com. Is private student loan debt ruining your life? It doesn't have to. Just go to YRefi.com. That's YREFY.com and get your life back. I'm Rob Stallworth, WTOP Traffic.
The 7 News First Alert forecast with Jordan Evans.
Lots of sunshine today and tomorrow. Temperatures staying above average in the 60s. And tomorrow it's even warmer. Highs around 70 to 75. Mostly sunny skies and a south wind, 5 to 15 miles per hour. Tomorrow night it warms up even more. Lows only into the 50s as clouds increase ahead of the weather maker coming in Thursday. Not much in the way of sun on your Thursday, but we'll start off the day dry. Then showers move in during the afternoon. Rain totals anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch. Friday it's drying out, more sunshine and breezy conditions with temperatures only around 58.
All right, just up ahead is Georgetown. That's decisively DC. I still don't know if this is Maryland or DC. We'll try and figure that out.
Sky 58 degrees outside the WTOP studios. Brought to you by Top Nova Orthodontics. Looking for a high-quality, affordable orthodontist? Visit Dr. Abbasi at Top Nova Orthodontics.
You're listening to WTOP, Washington's news, traffic, and weather station.
WTOP News. Facts matter.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Lewis. Mike Chikaitis is our producer.
Breaking news on WTOP.
President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have concluded a lengthy call as the White House is pushing its 30-day ceasefire proposal aimed at ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. Joining us live now in the studio is WTOP National Security Correspondent JJ Green. JJ, what are you hearing about this conversation between these two leaders?
Well, the White House has just put out what they call a readout of this conversation between President Trump and Putin. And they spoke for about 2 hours, a little bit more than that. But of course, you know, with translation taking place, it was about an hour. But what's interesting is what comes out of this is we still don't hear Moscow saying, yes, we agreed to this 30-day ceasefire. What we do get from this readout is the White House saying,
okay, we are definitely in D.C. now. So avoid drops here. To my right is one of the boathouses, one of the still in use boathouses. It was somewhere around here, I'm not sure exactly where the J6ers had their cache of weapons. The news likes to forget about that. We don't know exactly where, but we don't want to do that. People are very friendly. You can hear them honking. Very, very friendly gestures of, hi, how you doing? Honk, honk. All right. This first ramp is not going back into Virginia. That goes into downtown D.C. without all the traffic lights of what becomes M Street. It's the second ramp. That's the Key Bridge that goes back into Roslyn, which is part of Arlington, which until the 1840s was part of D.C. Virginia took a bite of D.C. out sometime before the Civil War. You can't really see it on the dash cam, but just to my front left is the Exocet steps. They go up into Georgetown, into the school area. Yeah, Georgetown, where Kavanaugh went. Rapist, drunk Kavanaugh. But if you're on this road trying to get back into Virginia, don't exit on the first ramp. That takes you into downtown D.C. Take the second ramp to the Key Bridge, if traffic ever allows you to get there.
While we await to hear how they will react to the specifics of this, is there any sense that they would be willing to accept giving Russia certain demands that it wants?
well, we have to get the full understanding of what took place in this call. This is only a document with about 3 paragraphs that summarize what was said in that phone call. But in addition to not giving away its territory, they certainly are not going to want to give away the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is one of the largest nuclear power plants in Europe, if not the largest, which is a big source of money for them. So the other part of this that people, I think, maybe should take a peek at, is whether Russia is really trying to pitch things that are going to end this conflict that would be agreeable, or they're simply being greedy, trying to get everything they want and essentially try to move to a place where they feel like they're in a position of strength right now. One thing that came out of Moscow about an hour ago, which I found very interesting, was Russian state-run media said Putin doesn't trust Trump, that he will go along with this, but he wants to verify on his own terms, Putin that is, that he can get...
Keep in mind, Putin is not Trump's bitch. Trump is Putin's bitch. Key difference.
Turning to the world stage. And so part of what's in this document that we got from the White House is more conversation about normalization of relations with Russia, which is something that they want to do. And so this is very clear that Ukraine is only a stepping stone, even though it's a big one for them. They feel like they're on their way to back to...
This is the Key Bridge. It is a drive route and a walk route between Roslyn and Georgetown. Georgetown is a little bit north to the Watergate, the Kennedy Center, and quite a bit north of downtown DC. I'm over the Potomac River now. Roslyn's where President Bartlett was shot when the racists were trying to shoot Charlie. I know that's fiction. Get on the parkway here. Now, if you're paying attention, you realize I'm going the wrong direction. That's because I know of a turnaround point at something called Sprout Run. We're just a hair north of Roosevelt Island. Yeah, and we're traveling north. But the roads here are a little bit confusing. This is a trick I learned when I moved to the area. You can get south by going north by using Sprout Run. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Political legal affairs correspondent Josh Gerstein. Stay with us here on WTOP. Up ahead,
Sprout Run.
Steam is suddenly finding a lot of new business in Hollywood. I'm Jeff Legal.
It's 1:38. Traffic and weather on the 8s with Rob Stallworth.
The Beltway in Virginia remains clogged on the inner loop and outer loop between the Dulles Toll Road and the Georgetown Pike, where the work continues to take up the right lane. Westbound 66 headed past the Fairfax County Parkway toward Route 28 in Centerville.
Hadn't thought of it before. Possible future drop anywhere in here. Parking is up. If you continue straight, if you're not turning around, there are shopping centers up there. You can park up there in this whole wooded area. Beautiful places for drops.
River Road toward the Clara Barton Parkway and the American Legion Bridge. Interloop brief slowdowns past 355 headed up the hill toward Georgia Avenue. Northbound I-95 and southbound I-95 between 198 and 216 had the left lane blocked each way as a result of the crash. Northbound still has the left lane blocked. The southbound side, we understand, all travel lanes are open. Southbound BW Parkway's taking some delays. Approaching 32 headed south toward 198, but your travel lanes are open and available. In the district, northbound DC 295 headed toward Benning Road. That's where the right lane is blocked for the work as you continue toward Eastern Avenue. Your delays stretch back to Pennsylvania Avenue if you're northbound on DC 295. Inbound on the Suitland Parkway coming past Branch Avenue, we understand a single lane gets you by the work zone there. We believe they're working on the lights on the inbound Suitland Parkway as well as outbound near Branch Avenue as you make your way onto the Suitland Parkway. This report is...
And now we're heading back south.
YREFI.com. That's YREFY.com and get your life back. I'm Rob Stallworth, WTOP Traffic.
To the PJ Fitzpatrick Home Improvement Weather Desk.
Something that pushes you to have to face that every single day.
Yeah, and it's obviously not something I've done for a while. I haven't been.
My mother and dad were discussing about the weather and discussing about getting to school, because if I look back at my report cards, which I still have some of those report cards, I always had perfect.
Yep. Called shipbuilding, ship repair, ship design. Is the Navy currently structured to actually be able to do that? Yes or no? You don't have to give me why they're not, just yes or no.
No.
No, okay. Anybody else? Okay, anybody gonna offer a yes? Okay, so let's move on from that then.
Oh, this sounds interesting. Let's listen.
Jones Act.
That's Roosevelt Island on the left.
24 hours. Anybody want to comment on that?
As you well know, Congressman, there is very little commercial shipbuilding done in American shipyards today. To the extent that there is some commercial shipbuilding that does occur, it does seem to me that it is mostly Jones Act ships, which is building ships for intra-United States trade between one U.S. port and another U.S. port. So that is simply the current description of where we are today.
Okay, thank you. Mr. O'Rourke, you cited the South Korean model, and we just talked about it in the last questioning. Could you name one or two things that the South Korean model exhibits, utilizes, that maybe you think we should adopt?
I think the Navy certainly has the opportunity to adopt those practices that the South Koreans follow that I mentioned in my testimony. In fact, I became aware of them via a conference of two professional societies that relate to marine engineers, and they were speaking mostly to Navy people, and it was their view that those practices should be imported into the Navy's own practices. So
okay.
Right from the outset, the whole reason for my awareness of South Korea's practices in that regard came from professional conferences where people working in the field were telling that to the Navy.
Okay, so my understanding of what you said was some professionals who were attending a conference referenced the South Korean model as a positive. Okay, are there any other countries that would come close to the South Korean model, or something else that that we could learn from or partner with, or however you want to call it?
Yes, the other country you could learn from is Japan. Japan and South Korea are often mentioned almost side by side when people talk about best practices on a world standard in shipbuilding. And there are two things that you could learn from the Japanese. One, which you can also learn from the South Korean, is how to manage shipyard operations more efficiently in terms of training new workers.
All right, we're on Columbia Island. This is Marina. I think they call it Lady Bird Johnson, something like that. President Johnson's wife. Good parking area, good marshalling area. If you take your water pill, like I neglected to do today, they have bathrooms here. In warmer weather, they have a snack bar. All right, for you people to drink, they have a wet bar too. And you can park your boats here. Well, it looks like the snack bar might be open already. It's only March. All right. Anybody hungry? No, I'm not. They have a men's room and ladies' room, and they have porta potties. Okay. That must mean there's a plumbing problem in the restrooms. Point of reference, it's right next to the Maritime Memorial, not to be confused with the Navy Memorial, although the Navy is included in that.
Okay, I want to give Dr. Seidel. I want to give Dr. Seidel,
and that's why they're
just
so.
a second. I know can Dr. Seidel give me a quick answer?
10 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, hey, I just want to say you moved fast on that first question about are we structured to do the right thing. In my opinion, we can and are, and there's improvements that can be made, right? Okay. So I think it can happen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most of my questions have actually been addressed. I'm just going to ask you one real quick question. I apologize if this was already addressed before I came into the room, but I just wondering, with regards to some of the innovative technology that's out there nowadays, production line automation, artificial intelligence, robotics, could this deliver additional capacity? I mean, I know it can, and efficiency in shipbuilding. How aggressive are we being on this front? And I had another question, and I'm not saying that this is the primary reason by any means, because my colleagues on the left have pointed this out a few times to me when I brought this up. But what role does organized labor play in this as well? Because it seems like when you have a lot of these, these hardworking blue-collar jobs like shipbuilding, there's organized labor has a big part in this, and they really push back sometimes.
All right, coming on the left is Gravely Point, which I pointed out earlier. Right across the parkway from Gravely Point is Roach's Run. It's a much smaller parking area, but it is available for parking. It's very difficult to cross the road here. I guess you could do it when there's not a lot of traffic, but right there on the right, you can park there.
is this the future of shipbuilding? Is some of the stuff I mentioned, and are we working with organized labor to come up with ways to do that and still employ people?
Yeah, so I'll take that question. Listen, we are spending a lot of effort on modernization of the yards, trying to drive in advanced manufacturing techniques. We're also working with our supply chain network. The MIB monies that we talked about are going toward those efforts. We have right now quickly over 700 projects with 300 different suppliers across 33 states. And there's an 11% improvement in performance for them that are undertaking those. From an advanced manufacturing technology perspective, especially in additive, we'll do an SSGN availability here shortly that'll have 33 additively manufactured parts, and couldn't have been sourced any other way, and some of them will be sub-safe. So I think we are driving that kind of those kind of capabilities into our yards and our supply chain network. Haven't heard that the organized labor piece is a problem at this point, and I honestly don't expect it will be, even though I respect what you said. As a guy who used to work with UAW a lot too, I've watched us automate yards in the automotive sector or automate plants, and there's always some work and some initial pushback, but we typically get through that, and I expect we can as well in the maritime industrial base.
Okay. I appreciate that. And before, I just have 2 minutes left. I was going to give you guys the opportunity, the ones that didn't get to answer Ms. Kagan's question a while ago, because one of my questions also was about our ability to allow some of our allies to help us, not only shipbuilding, but the maintenance and stuff. I know when I was over in Australia recently talking about AUKUS, there were plans to build some shipyards and stuff over there, and so that it could basically help us. I know that I would prefer that we do everything here in the United States, obviously, but we can all see the writing on the wall that that's a long time coming before we get to where we need to be. It's
Texas Republican Ronnie Jackson.
Help us get there faster. They would provide intermediate maintenance capability, things of that nature. If we're fighting over in the Indo-Pacific, I think it's a national security asset as well.
Listen, the AUKUS partnership, obviously very important to us, and we're doing everything in our power to support the 1+2 and 1+2.33 to get there. I think it does help us, and having strong relationships in that trilateral agreement, certainly very critical. I'll yield so other folks can have a chance.
I would just make one comment that there's kind of a delicate balance that has to happen with the industrial base in terms of keeping the yards that you have existing healthy and inserting new yards into the industrial base. It becomes a little bit of a balance that has to be made because of the fluctuations in the flow through of ship programs through these yards. Any one bad year could result in laying off employees in some of our existing yards, and so I think a real holistic look at what the solutions are to be able to shore up that industrial base and ensure we have a vibrant commercial shipbuilding industry that then supplements and augments our naval shipbuilding industry is, I think, a key should be a key area of focus going forward.
That was Shelby Oakley from the GAO, just as correction, answering before her, wasn't it?
All right, GAO, guys. That's the Government Accountability Office. They work for Congress. They can take requests from the White House. Besides inspector generals, they're the ones who should do the research for waste, fraud, and abuse and help 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Okay, we're outside of that window. Those should not be coming in and just axing entire chunks of the government workforce to, quote, avoid waste, fraud, and abuse. The GAO and the Inspector Generals of the very agencies, they audit these organizations, and they can tell you, hey, we can surgically remove the waste, fraud, and abuse and keep the services that this country need alive. Oh.
smaller shipyards requires a solid long-term commitment with their government partners when they're building vessels, so that they can be healthy and vibrant and have the strong workforce with time on the job and the appropriate infrastructure and modernization to perform on the next contract. So the revitalization of our shipbuilding industry could very well determine the outcome of our next conflict. So we have a heavy responsibility here to pay attention to it. And I would like to direct my first question, more if I have time, but Ms. Oakley, given the strategic importance of strengthening our domestic shipbuilding base, which is a common theme here today, what do you see as the primary obstacle regarding what I refer to as the baked into the formula coming from the Navy and DOD regarding constant design changes and a moving target for our shipbuilding industry? Could you address that, please?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. In my opening, I mentioned that the Navy often puts forward optimistic business cases, right? So the best case scenario in terms of the cost and schedule estimates, given the risks that are apparent on these programs. Everyone knew that this was going to be a challenge to build up, for example, for the Columbia-class program, the Virginia-class, maintaining both of those at the same time. But we didn't act on that information soon enough to be able to respond. And so I think that really critically examining...
You said soon enough, but you're describing years.
Yeah.
Past, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
So I think one of the biggest challenges with regard to what we've seen in Navy shipbuilding over the years in respects to design is that not enough work is done up front to be able to know what we're signing on the dotted line for.
Agreed.
And
Howard, if I can shift, because I'm respectful of your time and the ticking clock here. Regarding American yards and shipbuilding, and how the Jones Act plugs in there, and would you address the consequences of overdependence from an American perspective and a national security and indeed a world security perspective, where America's the danger of overdependence on foreign shipyards and how that plugs into the Jones Act, for instance, in the icebreaker realm?
By the way, the Philadelphia shipyards, they were closed during, or as a result of the Bush administration, the George H.W. Bush. Yep, the actual act happened during the Clinton administration, but the downsizing laws were passed under the Bush administration. And y'all blamed Clinton when that shit took place. But one of the big shipyards, Philadelphia, that's not it. Well, there's still mothballs there, but there's no longer a shipyard there. You can thank Republicans for that.
To identify a category of vessels as, say, crucial vessels, would you agree generally that that American treasure should be invested in American shipyards and the building of crucial vessels?
I mean, I would say that the Navy would agree with you. I don't know that I necessarily have a position on that.
Thank you, madam, for an honest answer. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
I now recognize the gentleman from Guam, who is such an important member of this subcommittee and also has a very strategic region of the world which he represents, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and for holding this hearing today to discuss, as you mentioned, this critical shipbuilding need. And Guam is a key strategic asset.
By the way, that thing I said about the Bush administration, and you blamed Clinton, the Air Force Base is in upstate New York. Come on, man. That was, again, the downsizing commission under the Bush administration. It was law when Clinton took office. Clinton didn't have a choice.
The ship repair facility in Guam was closed in 1997 during the BRAC process. But the equipment was left behind and still there today. With the increasing threats and
BRAC, that's the word I was trying to remember. Base realignment and something commission.
our Navy ships and submarines, which are essential for deterrence and protection in the region. As we prepare for future conflicts, it's vital to maximize all available resources to enhance ship maintenance and repair capabilities. We cannot overlook Guam's potential to provide the support needed to keep our military assets ready and operational in this key region. So my question for Mr. Rourke, you mentioned that poor planning, scheduling, and funding are the main challenges affecting the timely completion of ship maintenance and repairs. Do you believe having ship repair capabilities in Guam could help mitigate the scheduling issues by cutting down the return time from Hawaii to the mainland?
I know that the Navy is interested in improving its ability to perform ship maintenance in the Indo-Pacific region, and that extends even to a Navy interest in wanting to understand what foreign shipyards can do in terms of battle damage repair during time of conflict. If the Navy's interested in that, then it would make sense for the Navy to be interested in making sure that they are taking advantage of the opportunity that Guam presents for ship repair, both on a day-to-day basis and again for battle damage repair during time of conflict.
Thank you. And as my colleague mentioned, Guam is USA. We can trust U.S. soil, our ship repair folks over there as well. So thank you for your answer. This question is for Dr. Scheidel. Your testimony highlighted the importance of expanding and modernizing key production and repair facilities for our nation's security, given Guam's strategic location. What efforts are being made to reauthorize the lease for the Guam Shipyard Repair Facility to enhance capabilities in the Indo-Pacific?
Sir, thank you. Obviously, a very critical spot for us because of everything going on in that region. We are having those discussions right now around where we are trying to do our ship repair and ship maintenance. I concur with everything Mr. O'Rourke said also, and my commitment to you is to continue to have that discussion and to try and get to a good solution that helps all of us and improves our tactical advantage there.
I appreciate that, and also along with your constant fight to let them know that we're there, we're ready to serve, and Guam is USA, so let's help out one another. So,
sir, I appreciate that a lot. I mean it. Appreciate it.
And one more question for you, please. How can the federal government leverage partnership with local workforce development programs to address the shortage of skilled workers in the defense industry base to meet production demands?
Yeah, I think we are doing a lot of those things, both local regions and nationally.
Okay, Saturday, what is Saturday? Saturday the 22nd at noon, we're having the recruitment meeting we've been discussing, and that place is going to be announced later. That is at noon on Saturday the 22nd. Hope to see you all there.